Today we're going to be talking about analyzing production possibilities. This is Chapter 1, Section 3. So the first thing we need to talk about are economic models. These are simplified representations of economic forces. We will talk about many different types of economic models throughout this course. The first model we're going to discuss is a production possibilities curve, sometimes called a PPC or production possibilities frontier. This is a graph used by economists to show the impact of scarcity on an economy. You can see here this is an image of a PPC. A PPC is always curved, as you can see here. There will be comparing two products. Here you have product A and product B, and it is good for small-scale economies. There are four assumptions of the production possibilities curve. The first assumption is that resources are fixed. The idea here is that you have as many resources as you can get. You're not going to lose resources over time, but you will not gain any either. The second principle here is that all resources are fully employed, meaning that you are using every resource that you have access to. The third assumption is only two things can be produced. So no matter how many resources you have, you are only producing and comparing two items. And finally, technology is fixed. So you're not gaining any new technology that would increase your production and obviously not losing it either. Next, we are going to be looking at a production possibilities table. Here you can see you have two products, loaves of bread and bran muffins. Now think for a minute about what things or resources would loaves of bread and bran muffins have in common. So a few things you may have considered is that both of them would require water, yeast, flour, sugar, and other items as well that they may have in common. So this is why they are two good products to compare, because a lot of the items that go into making loaves of bread also are required in making bran muffins. So here on this table it's saying if you choose to make 12 loaves of bread, you cannot make any bran muffins because you're using all of your resources here. If you choose to make 10 loaves of bread, you now can make 58 bran muffins because you're using fewer resources here than you were there. And now you have some resources left over to make some muffins as well. You will notice that as your loaves of bread decrease, your muffins increase until you reach 0 loaves of bread and 100 bran muffins. So this is your production possibilities curve. And here you can see you have loaves of bread on this axis, and you may not be able to see it, but this is where your muffins are. You will plot the points that you had in your table, 12 loaves of bread here, and 0 bran muffins there. And you will continue to go along until you have 0 loaves of bread and 100 bran muffins. Once you have plotted these 5 points, you then would connect them to create a curve, as you can see here. So things that we learn from PPCs. The first thing is that this is a very simplified model. And even though it doesn't apply to large-scale economics, it's important because it spotlights concepts that work in the real world with scarce resources. It also focuses on things like efficiency and underutilization. Efficiency is the condition in which economic resources are being used to produce the maximum amount of goods and services. Underutilization is the condition in which economic resources are not being used to their full potential. So let's see what that looks like now on the PPC. Anything that is falling along this curve, like point A and point B, would be considered efficient. because you are using all of the resources that you have available to create your loaves of bread and your muffins. If we look here, though, at point C, if we had a point marked where letter C is, this would be underutilization. You would not be using all the resources that you have available. On the other hand, if you look at point D, it is way out here. This is considered impossible because you do not have those resources, so it is falling outside of your PPC. Guns versus butter is a traditional PPC that we oftentimes talk about in economics. This is how we can apply the PPC to a larger scale economy. Now, you may be asking yourself, what do guns and butter have in common? Well, not much, except money. So here, the idea is that guns represent military spending by a government, and butter represents consumer products. So over here, you can see that they have plotted the amount of guns that can be produced, and then down here, you probably can't see it right now, but this would be butter. And so as you are able to produce more guns, you produce less butter. And then as you move along this curve, you're creating more butter and producing less guns. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the law of increasing opportunity costs. This law states that as production switches from one product to another, increasingly more resources are needed to increase the production of the second product, which causes opportunity costs to rise. So, if we go back to our example of muffins versus bread loaves, here at 12 loaves of bread, you need 12 loaf pans, and you don't need any muffin pans. But as you continue to make more muffins, suddenly you need more and more muffin pans and fewer loaf pans. Well, those pans don't come out of nowhere. You have to pay for those pans somewhere. So that would be your increasing opportunity cost. It is costing you more to make more and more muffins. Finally, the last thing we're going to talk about is changing production possibilities. If a government or a country discovers new resources, or for some reason loses resources, it will cause your production possibilities curve to shift. So if you find new resources, your PPC will move to the right because now you suddenly have more resources available and you want to be as efficient as possible. If you have a natural disaster or a recession or something of the sort where you lose resources, your PPC will shift to the left. We demonstrate this by drawing a new PPC, labeling it different from your original one, and then drawing an arrow showing the shift in which you are going. That is all for production possibilities curve. Please move to the next assignment.